गुड इवनिंग एवरीवन, हाउ आर यू डूइंग? मैं हूँ रमनप्रीत, आपकी कोर्स इंस्ट्रक्टर SSE 153 स्टैटिस्टिक्स सेमेस्टर 2 की फैकल्टी डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स दून यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ाती हूँ। मैंने आपको एक प्रोजेक्ट वर्क दिया था कुछ दिन पहले, जो कि आपकी स्टैटिस्टिक्स 1 से रिलेटेड है। हम स्टैटिस्टिक्स 1 में एक टॉपिक पढ़ते थे जिससे हमारा बेसिकली इंट्रोडक्शन स्टार्ट होता था कि एक स्टैटिस्टिकल स्टडी क्या होती है। तो स्टैटिस्टिकल स्टडी बेसिकली क्या होती है? वी हैव अ प्रोजेक्ट और अ रिसर्च ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ विच वी कलेक्ट द डेटा. So basically, a statistical study includes 5 stages. 1. Collection of data. 2. Classifying the data. 3. You will be presenting the data. 4th, analyzing the data. And 5th, the interpretations of the data. So this is basically done with the two sources. One can be that you collect this data from the secondary source, and this second part can be that you will be collecting from the primary source. दोनों के बीच में difference क्या होता है? Primary source means that you will be collecting the data first hand, which means you as an enumerator will be asking the questions to the respective respondent, and whatever information you will be collecting, you will be writing on a schedule. Now there is a difference between a schedule and a questionnaire. What is a questionnaire? Though questionnaire and schedule in a broader aspect refers to the same, because it actually signifies the set of questions. However, there is a big difference between the two. Why? Because a questionnaire is supposed to be filled by the respondent himself, whereas on the other hand, a schedule is filled by the enumerator. Now, who is an enumerator? An enumerator is a person who will be filling the information on behalf of the respondent. So if you are conducting a survey, you are actually an enumerator. So you will be filling the form for the person or on the behalf of the respondent. Great. So I think the difference between a schedule and a questionnaire is always clear to you all. What we have to start next is that basically a statistical study would start with collection of data, right? So collection of data, secondary source का मतलब ये होता है कोई भी ऐसा data जो कि कहीं ना कहीं publish हो, किसी के थ्रू आप उसको collect करें और उसके बाद अपनी स्टडी को स्टार्ट करें, राइट? जब आप इस तरीके का डेटा कलेक्ट कर लेते हैं तो आप सेकंड क्या करते हैं? आप ऐसे डेटा को क्लासीफाई करते हैं. क्यों? क्योंकि आप जब डेटा कलेक्ट कर रहे हैं तो वो बहुत ही रॉ फॉर्म में है. अगर आप स्टार्ट करेंगे इस तरीके की स्टडी तो आपको खुद ही नहीं समझ आएगा कि आपको कहाँ से स्टार्ट करना है और कैसे ख़त्म करना है. सो व्हाट डू? वी एक्चुअली क्लासीफाई देम. We'll be classifying in categories. It can be year wise, it can be geography wise, it can be quantitatively, or it can be any other way, right? Then when you classify the data, the next thing which comes is presentation of data. Now from that data which you have classified in categories, several categories, you'll be importing the data from the second stage. You will be analyzing and presenting the data in the third and the fourth stage respectively. So what is the third stage? Third stage is basically the presentation of the data. Now presentation of data is supposed to be on the basis of the type of the data that you have collected in your stage 2. Now if a data is chronological, year wise, then the data is supposed to be shown or presented in the form of line graph. If it is geographical, then in that case you can use a pictograph or maybe the infographs. Now you people are already learning so much in computers. I'm sure you must be using Windows 10 and Windows 7, where you can see there are several graphs and pictorial graphs given to you which you can actually use. So what is the next that you get? So next is that whenever you have presented a data in some form, let's say you have questions which are alternative questions, like that what is the gender of the person, whether he is a male or he is a female, or these days we have the transgender as well. So we have a pie chart in which we can say that a percentage represents male, a percentage represents female, and we have the data of the transgenders. So this is the way. Now similarly, we have certain questions which are based on what should I say, that it is based on the belief or the liking of a person. So such type of questions should be represented with a bar graph. That is how you will present them. Now, once you have decided what is the type of the graph and how it should be actually presented, the next thing which comes is that you have to actually analyze the data. अब आपने डेटा को import तो कर दिया और एक्सेल शीट के थ्रू या SPSS थ्रू आपने उसको एक्सपोर्ट भी कर दिया. You have got the presentation, you have got the chart. Now what to do the next? Now how will you explain that what is it? Basically what it is, that it is actually explaining the quantitative data. So now what you have to do is that you have to give the explanation to a layman or a common man. Now, not everybody and anybody who is reading that data or who is actually visualizing that graph, they can't understand what it is representing. Some can, but some may not. So there are types of graphs which are not self-explanatory. So in that case, what do you have to do? You have to write the simple summary of that graph. That is called as analysis of data. So that is simple. Like for example, you have got a curve which has been presented. Now that curve has been made through the line graph. Now line graph आपको कुछ एक nature show करेगी. किस तरीके का nature show करेगी? आपको मैंने पढ़ाए हैं कि graphs जो होते हैं वो किस तरीके के होते हैं. We have a linear curve, which is an upward curve, or it is a downward curve. Then there is a curvilinear curve, which is like this. And then we have different types of curve. We have different types of correlation. So correlation आपको पता है as statistics student that what it is. But when somebody will be looking the graph where there are only some spots in the graph, how will they know that what is it? So what do? You basically explain them in simple English or simple Hindi. Now since we use the medium of English, so I will prefer that you guys use it in the form of English. Otherwise, where bilingual languages are used, you can write it in Hindi as well. Once you have explained it in the analysis, what do you do next? The next thing that you have to do is that from the analysis part, you have to come to the interpretation part. And interpretation is that from that detailed analysis, what is the crux? How will you interpret? आपका उससे जो last note होगा या जो last conclusion होगा वो क्या है? So that is what you have to explain. That is called as interpretation of data. Now this is a short lecture. This is a small lecture which I am trying to explain you and trying to revise that what is a statistical study, how do we conduct a statistical study with the sources as primary and secondary, how do we move ahead? So giving a recap of the same, a statistical study is a study which includes 5 stages. First, collection of data. Second, classification of data. Third, presentation of data. Fourth, analysis of data. And fifth will be the interpretation of data. Again, I am recalling that collection of data can be done in 2 ways. One, through the primary source. Second, through the secondary source. Primary means first-hand data collection. Secondary source means that second-hand data collection. Primary source means you will be referring to the respondent yourself. You will be going as an enumerator, or you will be calling on the phone and you will be asking the question, and the answers will be filled by you. However, in your secondary sources, what do? You basically refer to the second-hand data, which might be published in the book or on some website, or there can be various other sources, I mean. After this, what do? Now, once you have collected the data through questionnaire or schedule, in case of a primary survey, next what comes is that you have to classify them. So you classify it through four ways. 1, geographical. 2, chronological. 3, qualitative. And 4, quantitative. What is geographical? When you are classifying the data on the basis of the geography or on the basis of the regional classification. When you actually categorize them on the basis of the year of the occurrence, which means what came first will be placed first, what came next will be placed next. So then it is called as chronological. However, in the third case, which is qualitative, you are just classifying them maybe on the basis of the charts, on the basis of simple fold classification or manifold classification. Now, what is simple fold and manifold? I have explained you in the previous semesters. So simple fold classification means that you are categorizing one particular topic in two cases. So we have, let's say, Uttarakhand, which was divided into the Garhwal region and the Kumaon region. Now this is a simple classification example. However, if we further subcategorize that what comes within or under your Garhwal region and what comes within or under your Kumaon region will be a manifold classification. So like the districts of Garhwal and the districts of Kumaon will be a manifold classification for Uttarakhand region. Now, the next classification is a quantitative classification, which is the most important, which you will be doing throughout in your life. So, quantitative classification actually refers to the numbers. Quantitative means that it is actually relating to the numbers. So, quantitative classification means that you have a data, maybe on profits, maybe on sales, maybe on losses, maybe on, we can say, any variable basically, which can be explained in numbers, in terms of magnitude. So that is represented on the basis of what do we call that is quantitative data analysis. Now once you have classified them, the next thing that you have to do is that you will be presenting the data. So how do you present a data? You present a data on the basis of pie charts, line graph, then we have bar graphs, then we have histograms, we have the correlation techniques, so we have the scattered diagram, and nowadays we have so many ways. So these classification can be further presented either using the simple Excel sheet, or you can further use the softwares. So these days we have various softwares, starting with the basic one is your SPSS. Then the higher versions, or the versions which you will be learning in your master's degree or your upcoming semesters, refers to your R software, Stata, Gradle, eViews, which is very important and upcoming these days. Then we have Python, which is very upcoming these days. So using those softwares, you can actually present the data. But who will decide that which data is to be presented in which graph? So yes, of course, these days our computers are very helpful. They are the best trainers, they are the best teachers maybe. So according to your data, they are guiding you that which data can be represented in which graph. But as a statistician, you should be knowing it well. So if a data is classified year-wise or chronologically, then it should be represented maybe in the line graph. Now, if it is representing the alternative questions, then maybe the pie chart is a better one, where you have to explain the percentages. But if a data includes so many information, then it is better to leave it in the tabular form. However, further categorizing, if you have a data in which the strongly belief and the strong or disbelief is to be represented, for example, the ones which are not quantitatively measured, but rather we can say that I believe that it was good. So in that case, what do? You use a bar graph or a histogram. There are other ways also. So these are some of the examples. So I am sure you will be able to find out. You have studied in the first semester. You can just recall the SP Gupta chapter number 1. You can just refer to that and you will understand that which graph to be used when. After that you have presented the data in the third stage, later you have to analyze that data. Why? Because only a statistician or an economics person or an economist or maybe someone who is educated and understands this analysis part, only that person will be able to understand what the presentation is all about. But if the presentation is not very self-explanatory, then it is your duty to explain them as statistician. So what do? You have to basically explain the critical analysis or the quantitative analysis in simple words. So that is the major work that a statistician is supposed to do. So from the presentations, write down the analysis in a simpler form. Definitely it should be a combination of an economic analysis and a simple version. So an economist should be able to understand in the economic terms, but however, if a simple person, if a common layman is if a common man or a layman is reading the same, so he should also understand. Last comes the interpretation. Now when you will be doing the analysis part in the fourth stage, so analysis basically includes a detailed explanation of the graph. However, what is the inference out of that? So that is supposed to be given in the last stage. So this is how a statistical study need to be moved and need to be explained. So I'm sure that you must have understood the basic concept. Now if you have understood it, so please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.